The static on the line had its own texture that night, a low hush under his words, and I remember thinking I could pick that hush out of 100 open channels. Rescue 9, be advised, the carport light's busted at that address. Neighbors say it's been out since June. Bring the big flashlight, not your phone. Then, quieter, like he almost didn't say it. And drink some water before you get there, Ibarra. I heard you skip your break again. That was the first time Dennis Cole noticed me noticing him back, though neither of us would have called it that. We'd been trading radio traffic for 5 months by then, him in dispatch, me riding third shift on the ambulance, and somewhere in all those clipped exchanges about addresses and traffic and difficult front doors, I'd started listening for the shape of his voice, the way you listen for a song you like coming on the radio. Not the words, the rhythm underneath them. I want to tell you it started as nothing, professional courtesy, the ordinary give and take of the job. But that's not true, and I'm done pretending otherwise. It started the 3rd week I worked this county, on a call that went sideways in the way calls do sometimes, where the address was wrong, and the patient was worse than dispatch had it, and I was standing in somebody's dark hallway with my hands full and no good options. And this voice came through, level as a table, and walked me through exactly what I needed until my partner got the door open. He never raised his volume. He never made me feel like the mess I was inside. When it was over, he just said, "Nice work, Ibarra," and clicked off, and I sat in the rig afterward with my heart going for reasons that had nothing to do with the call anymore. You know how it is when somebody's kindness lands on you at exactly the moment you need it, and you can't tell anymore if you're grateful or something else entirely. I couldn't tell either. For a while I told myself it was just relief, just the ordinary rush of a hard call ending clean. Then it kept happening. He'd catch things nobody else caught. A patient's dog that bit. A stairwell with a broken light, my blood sugar dropping on hour 11 of a double, which he somehow clocked from my voice going thin over the radio, and he'd have somebody bring a granola bar down to base before I even got back. I started angling for his shifts without admitting to myself that's what I was doing, checking the schedule board like it was a horoscope. My partner Delia caught on before I did. "You always sound different on the radio when it's him," she said one night, peeling a mile marker sign off the highway shoulder, and I told her she was imagining things, and she just laughed at me. The particular laugh people give you when they know you're lying, and they're going to let you keep doing it a while longer. The thing about dispatch and field is you can go a whole career without meeting half the voices you talk to every night. Different shift patterns, different doors in and out of the building, a base that's really 2 bases stitched together by radio traffic and nothing else. 6 months in, I still didn't know if Dennis was tall or short, young or not, married or not, though I'd built him a face in my head out of nothing but his voice, the way you do, and I was half scared of finding out I was wrong. I think that's the part people don't talk about enough, how much of wanting somebody starts in the dark, unverified, and how that's its own kind of intimacy, even if it never turns into anything real. Some nights I wonder if I'd have felt half as much for him if I'd started with his face instead of his voice. Maybe the voice got past whatever I usually put up first. Maybe that's the whole trick of it, and maybe I'll never be sure, and maybe you've had your own version of that, falling for somebody's words on a screen or down a phone line before you ever stood in the same room. The night everything actually happened was nothing special until it wasn't. Middle of October, a call for chest pain out at the Fenwick address, up on the ridge road that always eats our tires. Dennis's voice came through with the directions, same as always, low and sure, and then the radio cut. Just cut, mid-sentence, dead air where his words should have been. I sat there in the passenger seat with my hand on the mic, waiting, and something in my chest went tight in a way that had nothing to do with training. Turned out later it was nothing dramatic. A storm knocked a relay out 2 counties over, restored inside 4 minutes. But those 4 minutes taught me something about myself I hadn't wanted to know yet, which is that I'd built a whole architecture of feeling around a person I'd never once seen. And losing his voice for even a few minutes scared me more than most of the actual emergencies I'd worked that year. Delia looked over at me in the dark cab and didn't say anything, which was its own kind of saying something. He came back on steady as ever. "Sorry about that, 42. Storm took the tower out east. You copy the address?" And I keyed the mic, and my voice came out rougher than I meant it to, and I think that's the moment he knew too, because there was a pause on his end. longer than his usual pauses before he answered. I finally met him 3 weeks after that. Not on a call, but at the holiday potluck the department throws every year in the same drafty firehouse bay, folding tables and somebody's aunt's tamales and a karaoke machine nobody ever unplugs early enough. I'd told myself I wasn't going to go looking for him. I went looking for him within 4 minutes of walking in. He was taller than I'd built him, and he had a way of standing a little apart from a crowd like he was still listening for something. And when Delia said his name out loud and pointed, I swear my whole body knew his voice before my ears caught up, because he turned and said, "Ibarra?" in that exact tone, careful, a little warm, checking he'd read the room right, and it was like hearing a song I loved played on an instrument I'd never seen it played on before. We stood by the coffee urn for over an hour and didn't run out of things to say, which surprised neither of us, since apparently we'd been talking the whole time and just hadn't noticed the conversation had a shape to it beyond addresses and traffic. He told me he used to worry it was strange, caring that much about a voice on a radio he'd never seen a face to. I told him I'd worried the exact same thing, and worse, I'd worried it wasn't real, that maybe you couldn't actually fall for somebody through 11 seconds of dispatch traffic at a time, that maybe I was just lonely and looking for somewhere to put it. He didn't have an answer for that. Neither do I, honestly, even now. What I know is that it was real enough to still be standing here months later. Real enough that he still catches things nobody else catches. Real enough that some nights I still hear his voice come through before he said more than 2 words, and something in me settles the way it did that very first bad call, long before either of us called it anything. I still don't fully know how to explain it to people who ask, whether it counted as knowing him before we met, or whether we were strangers right up until that firehouse bay under bad fluorescent light. Maybe both things are true. Maybe you don't need a face to start loving somebody's steadiness, only enough nights in the dark to notice you're listening for it. I think about that a lot, actually, how a voice can build a whole person in your chest before you ever confirm a single fact about them, and whether that makes it more true or less. I still haven't decided. But when the radio crackles now and it's him, I don't wait for the words anymore. I already know exactly what I'm hearing.